Mobile marketing is a fascinating area of digital marketing. It is super fast-paced. Our behaviors as consumers is rapidly evolving and changing, and mainly the change is happening that we're moving from other types of screens and using more and more mobile screens. So let's investigate this. Couple of definitions here of mobile marketing. I think some of the keywords here is the idea that we are constantly connected, and also the fact that mobile is a very personal device, something that comes through in both definitions here, and also the fact that it's a two-way or multi-way communication between a business and the consumer. Now, why is mobile so important? If we look back a few years, so Eric Smith there from Google, mobile's happening faster than any of their initial predictions, and that continues to be the case. It's happened really fast, and marketers are now just catching up. The situation today, according to the Yellow social media report, is that more Australians own a smartphone than what Australians that own a laptop, and also 74% of us are using the smartphone to access social media, compared to only 49% using laptops. And if you look back to 2011, 60% of us used a desktop. You remember those, the non-movable computers? They're almost disappeared, especially for younger generations. 60% in 2011 used those to access social media, and only 34% used a smartphone. That has now changed to 74%. So change is here, and it's here to stay. We are now using the mobiles mainly to access the internet. Now, why is mobile marketing different? I mean, moving beyond the obvious, the screen is much smaller. So when we do, for example, search engine optimization, we need to think about the fact that fewer search results will pop up, and also the fact that people are using different keywords when they search using mobile. When you use a desktop or a laptop, we tend to write more in full sentences, while when we search and look for things on a mobile, we use fewer keywords, and we're often also more in a hurry when we use mobiles. But a business don't necessarily need to have a mobile marketing strategy, but what we do need is our strategy needs to be mobile. We need to put that in mind when we put in our strategies. So mobiles have changed how we behave as consumers forever, and successful marketing strategy needs to start with consumer insights. We need to start by, okay, so what are people actually doing, looking at the things that I just mentioned about how we search differently, and so forth, and then take those insights into to develop strategies. So mobile marketing is, of course, it's personal. Devices are very seldom shared. Think about last time you let someone hold your phone, and perhaps you felt a little bit uncomfortable with that. Also, it's interactive, it is time relevant, and it's location dependent, which we'll look at. The next question is obviously how mobile is different. The location of the search differs from when we use a laptop, for example. A laptop, we normally use it at home, while when we search things on our phone, we are on the go. We also quite more frequently look for things that are local. So if we're on the go, we're looking to find things near us and around us. So searches that starts with near me is exploding almost on Google. It's being used more and more frequently these days. And that sort of leads to the next point here, that it's also time sensitive. So we want to know it right now. We're out and about, we want to go somewhere near me, and we want that information right now. We also need to take into account the capabilities of the device. So having things such as click on this link to make a direct phone call, for example, or to send a text message, is super useful features. Things that you obviously don't need on a laptop or a desktop, because it can't make calls, but the phone can. So those things needs to be taken into account. The device also has limitations. It's slower typically than what your typical laptop or desktop would be, and that needs to be taken into account. So the site in itself needs to be quicker so that it loads quickly on a mobile. Other limitations is if you have software such as Flash Player, that won't work on a mobile, so you need to think about that as well. On mobile, people are also quite often using voice search, such as Siri or Alexa or Hey Google. And we also these days we're starting to use search by images or visual search, and of course then the mobile has apps. If we look at the latest statistics, we are in a situation today where pretty much everyone has a mobile phone, and that includes the developing world. Mobile has become something that we all have and enjoy. Let's dwell a little bit on the evolution of the mobile. It is what we refer to as the fourth screen, and there's a nice little video there for you to look at. It's an ad for Nokia, but never mind. So talking about the first screen as being the movie theater and how people came out of their homes to get together and see live world events and so forth, or movies, and then we went away from being together outside to retreat into our homes because the television came, and as such we watched TV at home, and that was great for advertisers because they could bombard us with television ads. Then we moved to the computer screen that gave us access to the internet. Globalization obviously rose as a result of that, because we were connected, and we connected to the world, but from our home. And then the fourth screen came, the mobile, where we then got back out into the world, and we had the whole world and the internet in our pockets. Now, interesting little fact there, a teenager today have more information readily at their fingertips than what any US president had more than 15 years ago. So think Bill Clinton or George Bush. This table shows you a few different products or technologies and how long it took for them to reach 15 million users. And this really tells us how quickly things happen these days. Pokemon Go, 50 million users in 19 days, while as for the telephone, for example, that took 50 years to reach that. Mobile phones took 12 years, but smartphones happened much quicker than that. So that was the sort of stock standard mobile phone that could only make calls and send text. It took 12 years, while Apple's first iPhone, for example, took only 2 years and 9 months to reach 50 million users. What we also see is that mobile is changing our media habits. And the oldest type of media, such as print and radio, remains relatively stable. We're watching a little bit less television, and it seems that we are then watching perhaps that video content on our mobile handheld devices instead. So even within digital, we can see here that the move is happening, and that we are spending more time on our mobile devices and actually less time on our desktops or laptops. The previous statistics was from the US market, and this is also global, and we see very similar trends here from China. Now, here are some interesting, fascinating statistics that looks at what we are using our mobile phones for. Some country differences may be observed here as well, but in general we are mainly using our phones to communicating with people, checking the weather, and we use it for banking and so forth. We play games, we read and we watch news, we shop, we take photos, we listen to music, we stay organized and we watch videos, we organize transport such as Ubers or taxis and so forth, and loads of other things. Now let's look at some of the marketing or advertising implications of the fact that we are going mobile. So these statistics shows you the differences between the time people are spending on different types of media versus what the advertising industry is spending on those media. And I wanted to show you the statistics both from 2011 and 2017, because the newer statistics is clearly then pointing out the opportunity of mobile as that's where the gap is in terms of the time people are spending versus what the advertising industry is spending. But that gap has closed really rapidly. If you're looking at what was happening in 2011, there was an enormous gap there. Only 4% was spent on mobile, and now that's up to 26% within a 5-year period. Here's some funny comparisons between the inauguration of Pope Benedict versus Pope Francis. And for Pope Benedict, I think we can see 2 screens, 2 mobiles, those clamshell phones. Well, 2013, everyone had one. Mobile devices are not simple products. We have basically converged both hardware and software into one super powerful handheld computer that we for some reason still call a phone, although it is a small powerful computer. So GPSs, cameras, Bluetooth, gaming tablets, and also public touch screens like the ones that we still see at shopping malls, all converged into the mobile phone. And so of course also comes messaging, SMS, email, voicemail, apps, location-based services, mobile internet, all these softwares, passports, wallets, credit cards should also be on that list, is also converging into to one. So the academic paper I want you to look at this week by Andreas Kaplan was one of the first to really classify different types of mobile marketing applications. So in this table, Kaplan looks at what are the triggers of communication. Are we pulling consumers towards us, or are we pushing messages at them? And then versus what degree do we know to what degree do we know the consumer? Do we know who they are? Do we have their details, or do we not know who they are? And then you get this 4x4 matrix. When we are pushing messages at consumers that we know, we refer to them as victims. And that could be things such as SMS messages that are sent out to people, sometimes without their consent. That is actually illegal in Australia. It goes under the Australian Spam Act, but it still happens. Patrons, on the other hand, we know how they are, but we're pulling them in by giving them offers. That's something that's quite frequently can be done through mobile apps, where people have logged into the apps and they've signed up for things, and they have agreed to receive our communication. If you don't know who the consumers are, on the other hand, and we flog messages at them, we refer to them as strangers, and that could be things such as billboards with QR codes, or otherwise pop-up ads, banner ads on mobile. And then we also have the groupies, when we don't know who they are, but we are pulling them towards us with messages that they would want to hear. Now, if we look at mobile ads, for examples, which will typically be targeted at strangers or groupies, because we don't know who the consumers are. That could be banner display ads, such as the ones in my example here. It could be mobile pay-per-click, so when you've paid for to feature on the top of a Google search. It could be idle screen advertising or in-game advertising, you know, those annoying pop-up ads that you have to watch in order to continue to play your game. Challenge, of course, here is to migrate existent services onto devices that have a much smaller screen. And also, but consumers, we often accept this in exchange for free apps. And I'm sure that you have plenty of apps on your phone where you're running it on a free version, and the only way to get rid of the ads is to pay for it. Our mobile coupons, on the other hand, can be sent to consumers that we do know, and also consumers that we don't know. And here's just a few examples of that. Australia Post is using mobile coupons quite frequently these days. They send them both via SMS and also via email. So instead of having to have that little card in your mail, you can just take your text message or your email to the post office and receive your parcel. Airlines are also using this extensively, so you don't have to print your boarding pass. But people can also be victims of mobile coupons. Such as, for example, receiving text messages that you didn't ask for. Legal in Australia, but there are some exemptions, such as, for example, for political parties. Okay, that's all I had for this video. In the second video for this week, I'm going to talk more extensively about mobile apps and also some of the frameworks from Google.